everyone to this.
Way to go. Way to go.
Welcome everyone to this week's really big fan podcast. Mushmouth here is your host, ChZuck. I'm joined by my co-host who has a much clearer speaking palette.
I mean,
acronym.
sometimes. It's not always.
I just try to talk too fast.
Well, I cut it out the one time when I messed up with Erica. And then you were like, you cut it out? I'm like, yeah, because I was like, hey, screw you, man.
See, I'm just that's because of Albeck.
Yeah.
He's the one that was like, just leave it in.
Yeah.
You're a person. Who cares?
It's true.
It's human.
It's
charming. It's like Lizzo.
Yes.
Like you were saying about Lizzo.
Yes.
Do you want to save that for the headline?
Yeah, we should.
All right. Let's get to the headlines.
All right, I guess I'll kick it off on the headlines here. Lizzo is going to be on The Simpsons. So I checked this out, and I probably should have pulled it up beforehand, but she accidentally updated her Instagram to tell people that she was going to be on The Simpsons and did it a week early. So, but she said, every icon has been on The Simpsons, and now I can add my name to the list. Thank you to the whole team for making this dream come true. And she goes, yes, I am wearing Yiddy and playing the Sasha B fluting, which is her flute. It is named Sasha.
All right.
So
did not know that.
She's got that coming, but then the next post is Homer backing into the bushes and said, not me finding out my Simpsons episode is next week. Somebody told me the wrong date. Pretend you didn't see that clip until Sunday 5/21. So this is what I'm giving to you guys as a takeaway. Make sure if you're posting specific things on specific dates to social media, you give your social media person the right date. Lizzo runs her own, though. Like,
Sure.
it's so her that you can tell.
Is Lizzo the new charmingly human celebrity?
Kind of.
Like, we've always got at least one
Yeah.
that we're following that's like, oh, they goofed up. How charming.
Well, I don't know if she's at Pedro Pascal level.
Right.
I mean, she might be. I'm not entirely sure.
Maybe that's why she was on The Mandalorian, to get like a little bit of the rub, as they say in wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, I think she just endures, bless you, for
Thank you.
so long. Like she's been that person for a while. It's not like she's an it girl that is on and then off again.
Sure.
It's like she has this sustainable piece, and I don't mean this in any disrespect, but I feel like people love her more as a person than they are obsessed with her music.
Right.
There are people that are obsessed with her music, but it doesn't speak to everybody. And so it's more of like, she's just a really fun pop culture figure, especially during the pandemic. She went really hard on TikTok and got a whole new fan base from that. So she has been doing so many different things, including she performed in Nashville semi-recently and brought out a bunch of drag queens, even though they told her no. Nice. So once again, like Lizzo doing the Lord's work up in here.
Is it Lizzo or is it Adele that titles all her albums, whatever the age is when
Adele.
She does it?
Adele, yeah, because Adele has been going since she was 19.
Yeah.
Lizzo's only been within the last like 2019. She really started to pop off. She performed at Mopop in 2019, and that was the year I didn't get approved. They told me they could not find my application.
Oh, that sucks.
And then they wouldn't count me a pass even after the fact. It was like, please. And she was who I wanted to get.
I was going to say, did you know who Lizzo was going into that Mopop?
Yeah, I did. She was already kind of going viral at the time because, you know, big girls like that, you don't see them doing acrobatics as much or whatever. Yeah. And so it was crazy to see her. She was dressed up in like a full Sailor Moon attire, and she had the flute out, and she was going viral for performing that way. And so I started digging into her, and she was all about body positivity and everything else, which I'm a big fan of. And I was like, yes, like, I love this chick. And so that was the reason I tried to get into that show, and then I didn't get in, and I had that heartbreak of I never got to photograph her, because then the next time she had a tour was at LCA.
She's already a big deal.
Already a big deal. Like that was how I got Billie Eilish the last time.
Yeah, it was.
I got her on her come up.
Yep.
And now she's impossible to get in touch with. So like that's where I was like, oh, I got to get Lizzo before she blows up. Same thing with Megan Thee Stallion. I was supposed to do that New Orleans trip and photograph her on her come up, and pandemic happened and she blew up during the pandemic, so I didn't
Right.
get to shoot her either.
I like in the clip too from The Simpsons that she's not Simpsons yellow.
No, she's not.
Actually, I don't.
I mean,
I guess
Cleveland's not.
I guess yeah, okay. I was gonna say I guess Abu is brown.
Yep.
Yep. It was like, oh, it's a brown person on The Simpsons. That's
I was
fun.
more glad, and this was probably, her and her team making sure, but she also made sure that she was very voluptuous in this. Like, she looks plus size still, which is awesome. And for them to put her clothing line on her.
That's cool.
She's wearing, because her clothing line is, athletic wear and undergarment type stuff. And so she's wearing, a bralette thing and then the yoga pants. And you could tell it says Yiddy in really small letters across it, which is awesome. So
that's fun. She's
she's very good about cross-promoting all of that as well. She's, she's the plus-size underwear thing that Rihanna has Fenty. It's kind of like that same kind of setup too. Like, you have to have a subscription to buy it and everything, so I don't have any of it yet. But yeah, so there's my whole dissertation on Lizzo. I did not mean to go that long into it.
No, I was very interested in it because now I'm going to bring the room down. So, Entertainment Weekly posted the spoiler for next week's Amazing Spider-Man issue. The cover said one of these people will die, and it shows these screens with all these characters on them. Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, is the one at the end of the issue that's supposed to die. And the thing that's interesting about that, to me, is that they had solicited in June. Is it June? No, July. This issue called Fallen Friend #1, and everyone had anticipated that it was going to be for the Captain America story that's going on right now. Like, somebody was going to die, like Bucky or something was going to die in that story. And it's sometimes they'll solicit stuff with absolutely no information because they don't want to spoil a story arc that's going on. And then now they've put the full solicit up for it. Now it's Fallen Friend, The Death of Miss Marvel. It's going to be written by the three writers who I think have done the most work on her: the creator G. Willow Wilson, Mark Waid wrote her on Champions or on Avengers for a while, and then Saladin Ahmed had written her in her latest solo series.
Now, I've been hearing people and seeing people tweet about it. This is all just so they can make her powers the way that they are in the movies, right?
That's what I'm thinking.
They partnered with them. We're gonna do this.
Whatever's gonna happen in next week's Amazing Spider-Man will look like somebody killed her, but then she'll get better. And then when she gets better, instead of having Mr. Fantastic stretchy powers, she'll have weird gem powers to match the MCU version. That's my 2 cents where I think that's going.
Yeah, and then somebody also shared another thing, spoilers if you don't want to know about this, but I saw a panel of Peter wearing her costume.
Peter Parker?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that. That's
you'll have to look on Twitter. I don't know. Maybe it was a fake out. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was he didn't have the Spider-Man mask on, and he had on her outfit. Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay. What's going on here?
Yeah. Wild. So yeah, that's something to look forward to, I guess, in the comic book stores next week. Amazing Spider-Man 26, and then in July 12th is when the Fallen Friend issue drops. We talked a couple weeks ago about the writer's strike. This past week was when all the networks were like, here's our fall lineup.
Oh.
And ABC revealed a fall lineup that is all reruns and reality shows.
Yep. It's what Variety tagged it as protest proof, or that's not the direct thing, but it was, it was things that couldn't be canceled on air because they don't have writers, which honestly just felt more slappy than anything else. Like, well, we're going to double down and put all this on.
It is interesting that the writer's strike is happening around the time this happens.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I don't know if that was intentional or if it was just a matter of the contract went up and the studios didn't sign the contracts or, new contracts and give them what they want. So they're like, all right, we're going on strike.
So the way that, at least this is how I've seen it work, I've worked on a couple shows before, and when you're working on those shows, they're usually a year later.
Yeah.
So I worked on something locally that isn't coming out until next year for TV.
Right.
So it's like I have a feeling it's like what they're working on now, but if you don't have writers to work on all of this stuff, they can't move forward with anything that they're really doing.
Right.
So I would be willing to bet that is their, oh shit, this is going longer than we thought.
Yeah.
We're going to program everything this way so we're not missing stuff, because a lot of the what do you call it? The nighttime TV people have all pulled out.
Right.
So.
And like the host of Jeopardy from The Big Bang Theory, she pulled out, and then they pulled somebody else in. I saw that Will Wheaton had tweeted to that guy like fairly threatening, this is a small town and we'll remember that you crossed the picket line to host Jeopardy.
And there's been a lot of Ken Jennings was the one. Yeah. And there was a lot of people that were showing up. I think I saw I don't know if it wasn't Chris Pine. Somebody was out there.
I saw Mandy Patinkin was out there with them.
There was a lot of different people. I know the cast of Abbott Elementary was like the first ones to be out there,
right.
But there were a lot of people that are doing it now. So I'm like, hey, you're putting more spotlight on the fact that you guys won't budge, when if you guys just took a teeny pay cut, we would be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, you're talking to the studios more than the writers.
Yes, definitely the studios, not the writers.
Right, exactly.
God, fuck the studios.
The other thing from the announcements that just dropped today is that AEW's Collision show will start on TNT on Saturdays this fall.
Yeah.
Which the rumor is that will be a separately filmed show so that they can have CM Punk on one show and everyone who got in a fight with CM Punk on the Wednesday show.
Which is absolutely
everybody,
silly. But
everybody who's willing to do business with both people can move from show to show.
So that's crossing the Pepsi Man picket line?
Kinda, I guess. Maybe.
Is he worth it? Is he worth it?
I don't know. I think he's gonna have to do a lot of work, even with.
He's gonna have to do a lot of cleanup for his image.
Yeah, with his people who were fans of him for a long time. He's gonna have to do a lot of work to prove that to the public, I guess, that it's worth backing him again. In the same way, I hate to say it, but like I don't know what's going on with Bray Wyatt now, but the ball's been dropped so many times, and I don't know if it's on creative, and I don't know if he's still having problems with psychological problems or physical problems, but like it's hard to get invested when they keep pulling the rug out from under you.
So apparently, I saw somebody tweet something about him and Cody Rhodes.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have any I haven't watched besides that the pay-per-views. I haven't seen anything in a minute.
Right.
But somebody had tweeted something to the effect of, if they put him with Cody Rhodes, then we could get a throwback of Stardust.
That would be fun.
Which would be kind of hysterical.
I would be entertained, but I would be in the minority, that's for sure. I saw that Mick Foley had said, I think maybe on his podcast, that he wishes he could have worked with Bray Wyatt because he thinks the two of them could have had some amazing promos against each other, and I agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Spinning over to some music news, the Foo Fighters have unveiled the second track off of their upcoming album, and it's called Under You. Okay. I have not listened to it as of yet, but they're also going to be headlining Riot Fest, which was a surprise to me, because a lot of Riot Fest lineups usually are like throwback punk stuff.
Sure.
A lot of last year, itself, it was like My Chem and a bunch of other bands, and like I know when I went, there was Simple Plan and Newfound Glory were both on the lineup, which were stuff that I grew up listening to. And then they of course had other bands that were kind of standouts like Anthrax and Devo.
Right.
But then you had like headlining, you had Slipknot and MGK. So it was like you had the pop punk and the harder stuff. But the Foo Fighters was a shock. And there was also a couple other bands. I know that I told you that it was Postal Service and
Death Cab for
Cutie are going to be a headliner, which sounds silly to me. And the way this is lined up on the flyer, which is just my guess, they have like Foo Fighters, Turnstile, Postal Service, Death Cab, Queens of the Stone Age, The Cure, and Mars Volta. And those are like all the headliners for the weekend.
Yeah, because they show you like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday there.
Yeah, and the way that they have this, they have two major stages, and then they have some smaller stages when you're on the campus.
Right.
So more than likely, Foo Fighters will be on one stage while Turnstile's on the other.
Interesting.
Which means that Postal Service and Death Cab will be going when Queens of the Stone Age are going.
That would be a rough choice for me.
Absolutely.
That would be an extremely rough
and then you have
choice.
the Cures and the Mars Volta. Now, that's just my hypothesis based on what I saw when I was there the last time. But I was telling you, I'm like, you put Postal Service and Death Cab in a headlining spot at night on a Saturday.
On Saturday, yeah.
Why didn't you do that on a Sunday when people are drained as hell and they just want to chill and listen to music? Not on the Saturday night.
They've been there for 3 days. Just let them hang out.
Right. And most of the time on Sunday, if you go on Sunday, people are leaving in the middle of the last set.
Yeah.
So it's like, why? I love Death Cab and Postal Service. That's no slag to them whatsoever. I'm not being crappy about that. I'm surprised that they did it like that. And there was some contingencies with some of the other ones back, like I think it was last year.
Right.
They had, I don't know if it was AFI or something like that, because AFI is also on this lineup, but there was a band that they had play during the daytime. Yeah, I think it was AFI. They played during the day, and then Bright Eyes played the next set, which was when the sun went down. Why did you not switch that?
Right.
It was weird. So I'm not trying to be crappy to the Riot Fest people, but I definitely am questioning how they laid this out this year.
It's a very strange card.
But if you want to see the Foo Fighters, there's a way to do it where you're not paying Ticketmaster prices.
Yeah, I guess there is that. For those of you playing Pac-Man 99 on the Nintendo Switch, they're going to be shutting down the servers October 8th of this year. So you can still download it and you can still play it. And they said that you will still be able to play it offline once it goes offline, which will be odd because it's an online. It's like Tetris 99. You got to play against 99 people. So I don't know how that's going to be removed, but it will be removed from the game is being removed from the eShop. Because they say there's likely just not enough people playing to justify keeping the servers up.
Yeah, is it like, do you think maybe they'd be playing with bots?
I mean, I would be fine with that, but
yeah.
I don't know that mode exists in the game.
I could feel that.
So I don't have that information.
Do you have that Loki is coming back?
No, you told me about that yesterday.
Okay, so Loki is starting streaming on October 6th, 2023, and that's going to be released as every week like we've been seeing with all the Disney Plus releases.
Right.
But Echo will be dropped November 29th, 2023 in its entirety.
Ooh.
So they're plopping the entire season that they're doing for that to binge.
I wonder why Echo. That's the first show they've done that with, isn't it?
Yes.
Or at least the first Marvel show.
Yeah, it's the first Marvel show they've done that with on Disney Plus, which leads me to believe that it's more of a thing where they don't know how well Echo is going to perform, so they're going to drop it all at once so people binge it hard and then talk about how great it is, and then people will be interested in seeing it.
Maybe it has something to do with scheduling, too. Maybe there's a Star Wars show that's going to be dropping weekly, and they're just like, let's kick all of this out right now.
Yeah, could be. I mean, you're heading also toward
because we saw
the holiday at that
when we
point.
had Miss Marvel and what was it, Boba Fett? Mm-hmm. Or no, I think it was Andor. We had Miss Marvel and Andor running on the same day.
Yeah, that was
like,
rough.
Watching both episodes on that day was just kind of like...
We didn't.
Yeah.
We got to a point where we were like, no, we'll watch Andor on Wednesdays so we don't get spoiled. If someone spoils Miss Marvel for me, I don't care.
Right.
And so we would do that one on Thursday. That and like Andor was so heavy in comparison to Miss Marvel. It's like, I don't even feel like dealing with this immature child right now.
Sure.
Which I love Kamala Khan, but she's also very child.
maybe that's how she dies in the Spider-Man book.
Just being ridiculous.
No, Peter's like, I do not have time to deal with this immature child right now, and pushes her off to the side, accidentally into the line of fire. Whoever villain it is.
I mean, her and Peter are very, very similar, so maybe it's like there can only be one. But yes, they're going to be doing that for Echo, so it'll be really interesting. And it's dropping November 29th, so you're leading into the holiday season at that point. So I have a feeling that they probably didn't want it to extend through December, because who's going to watch it?
It'd be weird if it's another holiday show like Hawkeye was.
God, I hope not.
Because we only deal with these characters during the holidays.
I mean, like, I liked the Hawkeye show, but that does pigeonhole it into, I want to watch it during Christmas.
Right.
And I have since it came out. I'm I'm like, I'm just gonna watch it every Christmas. It's fine.
And now we've got a Guardians Christmas thing we can watch
we
as
do.
well.
We were just packing all in all the holidays.
Well, speaking of the Guardians, we're going to wrap up this segment here. Next up, our guest, our new friend, Dana, is going to talk to us about her love of the Guardians of the Galaxy, amongst other things. It's the Really Big Fan Podcast, and we're coming back. Thank you, Born Done. Thank you. Yes, as Acronym said, we got the salad fingers online.
Yeah, it was from the creator, and then I also have This is Fine Dog that my pal Tiger Lady picked up for me, which is great.
Absolutely.
I'm just collecting meme plushies now.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Can we get a Dat Boy?
Yeah. I also need to find we just need to find a really annoyed looking lizard and put him in a chair.
Yes, we do. Yeah, like a CGI. Oh man. Can you imagine if they made the lizard, but he had a voice box, like a little a pull string or a button you could press, and he would just randomly say things?
That would be amazing. I want that, and I need that immediately.
King of the trees over here.
I'm the tree meister. Lead me down the hallway. Fuck you.
All right, here's your... Welcome back to the Really Big Fan Podcast. It's Acronym and ChZuck hanging out in the studio, and we are joined by... This is exciting, because you guys are going to get to watch us make a new friend in real time, because I have only talked to our guest over Facebook like Messenger twice. So this is going to be so much fun. It is Dana here, who is a really big comic book fan. I love your presence on my Facebook. You share some fantastic memes, absolutely delightful. And you come highly recommended from a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Shawnee Constant. So he was like, if you guys are doing a podcast about nerd stuff, you got to talk to Dana. So here we are.
Yes, meme queen and comic book extraordinaire, if you will.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. So let's dig into the comic book side of it. Where did what was your first comic? Where did your love of comic books start?
Okay, so I grew up in a lot of around a lot of swap meets, flea markets, those kinds of things. And I think I want to say I was like 12 years old. And the first comic I ever saw, that was a Marvel comic, that is. Because I see my mom's heavy metal mags and stuff like that, sure, but there was something about this box of comics, 25 cents each comic, and it was Guardians of the Galaxy Annual, number 4, and this is the one from 1988. Okay. So we're talking characters from the old Guardians of the Galaxy team.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think Yondu is the only crossover character in that lineup.
Yeah, smaller characters, Stakar, Martin X, Charlie 27 were all featured in a couple of the movies. Not Charlie 27 in this last one, but it's really about that team, who they call now the Ravengers, of course.
Yes.
In the films, in the movies. Mm-hmm. So that was like my first a Marvel comic, and it was the Cosmic Universe, and it was just fantastic. And I don't know if you guys can see this visually, but I have it right here. It's one of the best.
Oh, it's so awesome.
One of the best, absolutely.
It is in way better condition than my first comic. It's funny because my first comic wasn't technically my first comic, but it was the first one that I was like, comics are a thing and they're cool. And it was like the Transformers comic, like Transformers #1. I actually had to get another copy because mine was just tattered.
Yeah, it wasn't that the one that had the cover that opened up and it was like a larger cover. And it had what's
on the wall back here?
Oh, that's X-Men.
The
one that opened up there.
Thing.
Yeah, but there was a Transformers. I don't remember which book it was, but I don't think it was the first one that had that. So Guardians was your entry point for not only the Marvel Universe, but superheroes in general.
Yes, and that's the reason why the Guardians movies were always just my favorite. And later on, if we get a chance to talk about the third one, I'd really like to do that because let's why I have a love for it, and it's because of that first comic book. Yeah, let's dig into it now.
Guardians of the Galaxy 3 just came out a couple of weeks ago. It's probably, for some people, it's like Marvel's back. We've had a bunch of movies that were not quite as exciting or gave you the feeling that a lot of the early Marvel Cinematic Universe movies did, but this one almost universally I've heard people be like, "Man, this is what I've been missing."
And before we go any further, we saying spoilers? Yes.
Yeah, it's been what, 2 weeks? So
Has
yeah,
it?
I think we can do spoilers at this
Okay.
point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's already been released over a week. I think we're good, you guys.
Yeah.
Just making
Yeah.
sure. So anybody listening now,
Yeah,
if you haven't seen it
Spoiler
yet,
you haven't seen us, give us like 5-10 minutes.
you haven't seen it, get out of here.
So you were a fan of all three of the movies.
Oh yeah, James Gunn's a really good director. Slither was fantastic.
Mm,
The Belko Experiment, I think, was one of his too. So I've always liked his stuff, his writing and directing and everything. Uh, the soundtracks were always really good. But for me, it's the comic, the fact that he goes right for the source material. This
sure.
iteration of the Guardians of the Galaxy is more based on like the 2008 iteration in the comic books,
Right.
which is, Rocket Raccoon, it's Star Lord, it's Gamora.
Yep.
Um, so, um, so, and I really like what he does with the characters, the character development. For this particular movie, uh, there's so many callbacks, and there's
Yeah.
so many the way that they designed all the outfits and everything to look just like the comic books to the source material, the blue with the red outline.
It was
uh,
neat that
Adam
they
Warlock.
finally used the uniforms.
Yeah, I've never
Yeah.
seen it before other than in the movie. I've never seen any of the comics. So
Yeah.
I've got no reference of that really.
Yeah, when they were all like wearing the Guardians uniform, I was like, "Oh, here we go."
Actually, I have the 2000. I have that number one, and I have the other the annual number one, and I have
Nice.
So maybe later on I can show you.
Yeah.
What I also like is, as far as like the outfits, Adam Warlock at one point did have the skull right here, like on his
Oh, I
chest.
didn't even notice.
Yeah,
That's
and it was
cool.
like a glimpse, and I want to say it was during the third act. You can kind of see it, not just
Wow.
the gem that's supposed to represent the mind gem. I
Yep.
want to say. Yeah, the Soul Stone. I'm sorry. No, normally Adam Warlock has a Soul Stone in the comic books,
Oh,
but
that's right. Yep, you're right.
in the movie, it's just kind of like a notch, like to pay homage to him.
Yeah, because when I started collecting comic books with like Transformers, and for a long time it was just Transformers and Ninja Turtles while I was a kid. But when I got heavy into superhero comics, one of my first comics was Infinity Gauntlet. So like
Yeah.
Adam Warlock, I'm like, oh, cool. How do you feel about how different MCU Adam Warlock is as opposed to like the comic book one? Because that's the thing I always think about with certain characters in the MCU, where it's like when I remember watching, I think it was Iron Man 3, and I was like, if I was a huge fan of the Mandarin, I would be pissed because this is
Yeah.
not the guy I read in the books, and that's kind of how Adam Warlock ends up in this movie.
And like I heard that too, from a lot of people, that they don't really like how, because for those of you who don't know, what happens is Adam Warlock is released from his cocoon a little bit early, and because the High Evolutionary wanted him to go after Rocket. He wants Rocket's mind, like he
Yep.
wants it, and so he tells Aisha, "Hey, release Adam Warlock now." She's like, "Well, he's not ready. Like,
Yeah.
he's a little immature." So James Gunn took that and he ran with it, like immature,
Yep.
to the point where she's trying to strong arm just a baddie, and she's like, "Hey, teach this guy a lesson." And Adam Warlock
Yes.
literally like kills the guy. I mean, it's just like a blasted a hole right through him. So um, I like it personally, and I
Yeah,
think that it shows that he can later on he can maybe grow too, and
for
I'm
sure.
hoping that we will see maybe Annihilation Conquest as far
Mhm.
as like what can happen next in the future. Now that we have Phyla-Vell, which I hope we can talk about again in just a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as like Adam Warlock, I like the actor they chose, this Australian dude with the eyebrows.
Yep.
I really like the actor, and I personally I like what they did with the Adam Warlock storyline.
That's cool. That's because that's the kind of thing when I see that I always think like, man, if I was like a huge fan of that particular character, I hope that I'm not walking away going, they ruined my favorite dude.
Well, he did have a good character arc at the end because he goes like, "Why?" There's like things
Yeah.
that happen to where he gets to a point of like, "Why would you even bother saving me?" and he's like, everybody deserves a second chance.
Right.
And so, like, at the end, he's like the saving grace for Peter.
Yeah.
Which kind of like ties it in of like he's learning at that point.
And that's what I joked when we were leaving the theater. Like, going into it, the trailers all led to us believing that like this Rocket's not coming out of this one, and then you started to kind of get the feeling that maybe Drax isn't coming out of this one. And while you're watching that whole third act, there are moments for almost every character where like, oh, they're not gonna Rogue One this story, are they? And then when in the big end, when Peter Quill sacrifices himself, he was the one that was like, yeah, that's fine with me. I can deal with that.
I think a few people felt like that, honestly, because he's already had, at least personally, I feel like he already kind of had a completion to his storyline.
Sure.
You know, by that point, and I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. I'm kind of all right with it.
Right.
But yeah, there were so many, you know, all the trailers leading up to it, it kind of seemed like, oh, Rocket's gonna go, right? It's gonna be him. Because that's always what happens, you know, they always show the backgrounds of these characters, then gets rid of them, no problem, you know?
Yep.
But I'm actually happy that in the end, again, spoiler alert, none of them die.
Yeah.
None of the major characters really die. And I like that, because honestly, after watching James Gunn's Suicide Squad, I mean, yeah, like you said, they could Rogue One everyone.
Right.
Yeah. Also, so as far as like the movie goes and everything, I did want to mention the tie-ins from the songs and stuff into this particular, the third movie. For example, did you guys notice that they changed the name of the ship to the Bowie?
Yeah.
The larger ship? I thought that was really cool, because they had the whole Moon Age Daydream and the other one, and that was cool. And then also, as far as like the theme of music, I like how you know, Drax is always like, oh, I'm not a dancer, I'm not a dancer, and then in the end he dances. Oh, my heart.
Yeah,
I can't.
that was a fantastic full circle.
Did you see the clip of Florence Welch from Florence and the Machine watching that moment?
Oh no, she actually,
so
well,
if you
her
go
song's
online, you can find it. She's sitting in the theater and someone's filming her, and she's like got her hand like this, and you can tell it's like right at that moment, and she like covering her mouth almost, and then it hits that beat where he starts dancing, and you can just see she's crying, and she's just like so happy. And now that's like the power of the music on that side, because now both that song and Radiohead's Creep are both charting on the Billboard 200 for like the first time in forever, and for the first time with one of them. I forget which one.
Yeah, I think it was Radiohead, actually.
Yeah.
I just like that, like the way the movie starts, that there are songs on that iPod that Rocket is a fan of, and he quietly sings to himself. He doesn't let anybody hear it, but he's just walking through nowhere and like quietly singing Radiohead to himself. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Well, and it was cool too, like, so at the end, part of the reason why Peter even freezes in the sky in the first place is when he's sacrificing himself, was he wrote a note to Rocket at the end and put it on the Zune and was like, I went back and got this for you, because he ran back into the ship because the Zune fell out of his pocket.
Yeah.
And so that was a nice little touch, is that he got to pass that down, and that means that that musical component still stays with the Guardians, which it doesn't leave with Peter.
And it also passes down, because later on Rocket becomes the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy, I feel. Absolutely. Yeah.
Which was a cool callback to the second movie, where there are, what big plot point is him and Peter arguing about who's in charge. And like that's what I told her. It's the kind of thing where we all know Rocket's technically the one who should be in charge. Like, he's Iron Man, but he's a raccoon. Like, he just builds stuff. He's got the ingenuity, which is his whole plot in the third movie. But the reason Peter's in charge is because he just, to use a role-playing term, rolls natural 20s all the time. So it's like, well, I guess we'll follow him.
Yeah. Well, that, and you said something about like Rocket being, you know, so not good with managing people.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it too, is that not that Peter's the best at it either, but he can bring them together if need be.
Right.
And so now that Rocket has had this closure within his story, he can do that. Because you see his behavior is really different at the end when they're all sitting there talking about music together.
Yes.
And that's a really nice closure point for Rocket.
Yeah. And that's where we get to see Phyla Vell.
Phyla Bell. Oh, I know. Oh my goodness. And when they said, "Oh, Phyla," I said, oh, and I think I shouted in the theater, oh, "Phyla Bell!"
Yeah.
Because
And then you see her
she was
powers and you're like,
Quasar.
oh my God, I know who that is.
Yeah, and it's really good. I always love the cosmic universe. Like I told you guys, that was my start into Marvel so many years ago. And her as Quasar during the Annihilation Conquest run of
Sure.
Marvel is insane. It's so cool. But in that Moondragon's in that which is actually Drax's daughter. So she's
Hmm.
actually alive in the comics. So that's really interesting. So it makes me wonder if there is a future plot point there, maybe.
I hope so. I mean, the movie ends saying legendary Star-Lord will be back, but really what I want back is the Guardians.
Yeah, I would be really cool for like a Disney Plus show
Yeah.
of the Guardians just doing like one-off random missions or whatever.
But if
One shots.
if we're leading up to what they said, before everything happened with what is his name? The guy that plays Kang?
Oh, Jonathan
Jonathan
Majors.
Majors. Before that, we were all leading up to like the next big event was Kang. I'm
Mhm.
sure they're going to need some cosmic help. They're going to need the Guardians. They're going to need Peter Quill.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because there's so many versions of Kang too, which
Right.
I'm interested in seeing because there's an Egyptian version of him, not to go
Mhm.
off subject. If there's something maybe with Moon Knight there, because I love Moon Knight.
Yeah,
Moon Knight was awesome.
that was what Shawnee had said was you were a huge Moon Knight fan, and that was where I wanted to go when we were as we were talking about Guardians. Is what are some of the corners of Marvel Universe that like have really grabbed you?
Well, going also back to what you were saying earlier, people say, I don't know about this lately with like Marvel stuff, but personally, I love She-Hulk. I'm such a big
Yeah.
fan of She-Hulk. I have the Sensational She-Hulk #1. That's one of my favorite runs. And this television series was a lot more like that John Byrne,
Yep.
version of her, not the serious like savage She-Hulk. You
It
know,
was funny to see comic book fans going, "Oh, she's just doing what Deadpool does." I was like, "Yeah, because she did it like before Deadpool
before
existed."
Deadpool. And also just a FYI, actually Howard the Duck was the first one to breach the fourth wall in 1976. But that's besides the point.
Right, there you go.
um, but yeah, and Moon Knight and so and that's why with Marvel right now with Guardians of the Galaxy, I think right now it's pertaining to a lot of the DC fans that are out there too,
Sure.
because of James Gunn and incorporating so many of these actors. So I think this Guardians 3 is kind of bringing a lot of just the comic fans in general, not just the Marvel fans, but DC fans too. You
Yeah.
know?
And like how into the DC side of comic books are you?
Well, out of my 2000 comic books, I'd say about 500 are DC, but the
Okay.
DC ones that I collect are kind of like the random characters no one knows about, like
Sure.
Amethyst of Gem World, the Princess of Gem World, or I think was Cole the Conqueror. Well, anyways, there's a few that I like from DC, but they're kind of more of like the one-offs.
That's
Um,
funny because that's essentially how my comic book collection works as well. Like I love John Constantine because of the old Vertigo run back in the 90s.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
like most of my DC collection is just like a random Batman story here or there, or picking out a character like Hitman, which Garthinus wrote, and being
Hmm.
like, yeah, I'll collect everything that guy's a part of. But most
And
of
I
my
think
stuff, like I said, some of my first comics were like X-Force #1, Infinity Gauntlet, Dark Hawk, which did not continue after one issue. I was
I
like,
have that one too. I
yeah, I
have
was
that
like, this is all right, but X-Men was really where I fell in, and I was like, I
one.
love all of this kind of thing. So I'm
Yes.
excited for when we do finally get some X-Men in the MCU.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I have a copy of my X-Men #94 here, which is the first
Wow.
iteration of that team. Also have my Sensational She-Hulk since we were talking about that.
Nice. Very
So
cool.
many good ones out there. Obviously, I have Beta Ray Bill. He's my #1. I love him.
Yep.
Um, there's so many characters that are like that. And then also, if I could just say too, another thing that I like about James Gunn is whenever he does these movies, he's taking characters that we haven't seen or heard from about in ages, and it's like, oh
Yep.
yeah, I forgot about this, character or whatever.
Especially
And
in
I love the
DC.
fact that he always had Howard the Duck in every single movie because
Yep.
that's my absolute #1 character of all time.
Yeah.
So.
Who would have thought that we were ever going to get a live action version of Arms Falls Off Boy?
Oh,
Like,
oh yeah, that's right. During Suicide Squad, that was great.
Right.
There were so many characters in Suicide Squad in the beginning that were just like random characters.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, so who are all these people? And he's like, oh my god, they're just random characters across.
I hate to tell you, but every one of these are actually from a comic.
Yes.
Is the same way in Deadpool 2 when he puts together his own X-Force. I'm like, no, all of these are real.
Yep.
All of these
Domino.
characters actually come
Yep.
from one of my comics.
Yep, absolutely. Actually, I have the first appearance of Domino. Yeah, there's a lot of great characters in there. Yeah. And we were talking earlier too about Rocket Raccoon, right? Something about like his origin in the comics too is originally he was called Rocky Raccoon based on the Beatles song.
Right.
And then him and Lila first showed up in I wrote it down. 1982 Hulk 271 was the first time we ever see Rocket and Lila.
I remember Rocket being in that. I didn't remember Lila was a part of it as well.
Yeah, and it was called like Half World or something, which is funny because we have Counter Earth in the movie.
Right.
So, yeah. And that's I just really appreciate how, again, just the source material actually being taken and put into these films. It's not like, when Sony tries to put together some movie just with writers that they just found off the street, I guess.
Oh, you weren't a fan of Morbius, I take it?
Oh, yeah, Morbid time. Yeah.
I never want to see Matt Smith dance without his shirt on ever again.
Oh, never.
I was like, that is the Doctor. What did you do?
Yeah, the Doctor. I mean, he also, indecent. He needs to cover that forehead. Indecent. I agree.
So I want to talk to you very briefly about Moon Knight, because we watched the show and we absolutely loved the show. The show was fantastic. But then I went back on the Marvel Universe app where they've got all the comics, and I was like, you know what? I've read a little Moon Knight here and there. They've got the original story. Let me read back for it. What was it about the Moon Knight comics that really grabbed you, and how do you feel about the way it translated into the show?
So about the character and the reason why I'm such a fan of him. So as far as like Moon Knight, I've always liked, Marvel had almost like their universal monsters. So Werewolf by Night, Moon Knight, and it was dark, moody. They have their own Dracula. And I really hope that they do more of this, especially now that they have Man-Thing.
Yeah.
Oh, my heart. Anyways, so as far as like Moon Knight, what I liked about him is there was this one quote where he said, the reason why I wear white is because I want them to see me coming.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to see me. Unlike some heroes that want to wear black because they want to stay hidden in the shadows.
Right.
He's like, no. And, later on when, he has the split personalities added in and stuff like that, there was this one storyline in particular that I thought was interesting where he had different personalities where he was different heroes. He thought he was Wolverine. He kept saying bub and smoking cigars.
Yeah, where he thought he was on the Avengers, but he was actually imagining the Avengers.
But somehow he had their powers.
Right.
Which was interesting. Later on, we find out why, but I don't want to spoil that too much if you guys ever want to get into that. Right. So, Moon Knight, he's such a fascinating character. And being that I bounce around and have ADD a bit myself, I can relate to him,
Sure. Yeah, because when I was reading the originals, it really struck me that like this was I can't remember the exact creator, but it was like he was going, I'm going to make my version of Batman in the Marvel universe. And like the split personalities weren't even split personalities at first. They were just like different, personas that, different disguises he would put on to get his information. I don't think it wasn't until a few years and maybe a few creators that they were like, what if there's an actual moon god and he's not quite right in the head? And then every successive writer is like, well, what can we do to make him even more off? And that's, I think especially in the last like 20 years or something like that, every successive writer has done an even cooler job of going like, no, this character's really kind of cool. Like he seems kind of off, and he's not the kind of character, like going back to, like I mentioned, Darkhawk. Like at first you look at the Darkhawk, the way the character is the costume is, and you're like, well, that's a cool costume, but I don't really get what's going on here. And then if you get a good writer to expound on what's been built, then you get some really good stuff.
They kind of extended too, because it's like you have these different editions as different writers come in for the comic side. And then when you get to Moon Knight with Oscar Isaac, then you have, and I forget the Scarab, or what was her
I think
full
Yeah,
name?
the Scarab.
Yeah, that is a original character created for that series, is it not?
I believe so, because I've never seen her before in what I've read. Because the only female protagonist was the one that in the original comic like led him to that statue in Egypt and stuff when he was gravely injured, and that was the only female protagonist I knew of as far as that. So I never saw her before.
Yeah, I think I remember reading something about that where they said that they created that character for it, and now I think they've translated it to comic.
That's
Am I
always the
not right?
fascinating stuff, is the stuff that makes it from the movies into the comics. And sometimes it really works and sometimes it really doesn't. But that's one of the ones where it's like, yeah, this makes total sense. This is kind of cool. I'm still waiting for them to absolutely change Miss Marvel, so she goes from having stretchy powers to having gem powers. Like in
Yeah.
the show.
The Marvels is going to be a really interesting one. You know, I was a fan. I've always been a fan of Miss Marvel and earlier, you know, versions of Captain Marvel, and then even the newer version after what 2008, 2010, something, when she took the mantle
Yeah.
of Captain Marvel. So, I, yeah, I'm a fan of Carol Danvers, and it's been an interesting journey. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of that journey so far.
Sure.
I think it's an interesting take on Marvel.
Yeah, I agree.
With the, you know, being Kree and everything else, but I don't know. I feel like there's so much more to explore there, and so I'm really interested on what they're gonna do with the Marvels. You know.
Yeah. I always try and keep an open mind with the movies, and I always tend to, like I mentioned before, I'm a big X-Men fan, and we've got some not so good X-Men movies, and I always try and remind myself, it's like, I lived long enough to see a live action X-Men movie. Like, there are dudes in the 70s reading the Dark Phoenix saga that like heard that they were going to make an X-Men movie that, you know, aren't around now. They didn't get to see this.
Well, and I keep thinking too with the Marvels in general is that if you think about the sequencing of some of the movies, you've got Captain America had 2 movies. Then you had, or 3 movies. Then you had Thor had 3 movies. Guardians has had 3 movies. So far, we have only got Carol Danvers in her own one standalone.
Right.
And then we have her just popping up in Endgame. So we haven't fleshed out her character quite yet beyond what we've seen there.
Right.
And then you almost got more character development with Kamala Khan with the TV show.
Yeah, because we got a full TV show.
Because you got a full TV show of that, and then you have some of Monica Rambeau. So there's only a little bit that's been explored so far, but I do feel like the Miss Marvel character's been the most fleshed. So this will be almost like the second movie. This will be the Winter Soldier. This will be, you know, from there.
Also, when I first saw that Monica Rambeau was going to be in any series at all, I was excited. I was like, oh, she's Captain Marvel. Wait,
right.
She's Captain Marvel. And I feel like it was that meme with Spider-Man all pointing at each other.
Yeah,
exactly.
We might see that this time around too with this Marvel's movie.
Well, yeah, and how fun is it going to be to see that taken to the nth degree and enter the Spider-Verse in a week or two here?
Oh God, yeah.
A million Spider-Men pointing at each other.
Oh, I know. That's going to be fun. I cannot wait till that one. You know, one of the things I like to do is cosplay, and Spider-Gwen has always been like, I love her. Spider-Gwen's great.
Such a great costume. Like, above and beyond, like, the story didn't even have to be as cool as it was, because I'm definitely a fan of like alternate universe stuff where it's like I'm going to get to see stuff, but it's going to be a little different than what I'm used to. But like above and beyond, like I said, that original Edge of the Spider-Verse #2, just that Chris Anka costume design, which Chris Anka did the Hawkeye series. He did the art in the Hawkeye series. So good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, with that purple, the pinks and everything. With
the
that,
white hood, and then it's got the black and the pink webs underneath it. It's just like so good.
Now, when you do that cosplay, do you do the ballet flats with it?
Oh no, I do. I do like the blue chucks or like, you know, something. And if I'm walking around like a convention floor all day, they're gonna be real comfortable. I don't do like heels or you know, anything uncomfortable. No, underwire. No, I am comfortable. So Yeah, no, and as far as like Spider-Man and stuff like that, there's a character I found recently that I kind of went through down a rabbit hole a little bit called Hallows Eve, and she's
Yes.
actually I started, oh man, did I fall into a rabbit hole with her. I went out and I bought her first appearance as
Uh-huh.
well as her number one with all the variants. Like so yeah, no, I'm a big fan of, I think the most of my collection is the Amazing Spider-Man series.
Interesting. Because
Which
I've
I
got
think
I've
a
got a lot of
solid.
Spider-Man, but I was deciding as I was looking at my books and trying to figure out which ones I would keep and which ones I would sell. I was like, I mean, I like Spider-Man, but I'm not a Spider-Man guy. So there's, if I got to get rid of some books, I can get rid of my Spider-Man books.
Yeah, I think for me it depends on which series. Like I'll get rid of my Web of Spider-Man,
Yeah.
or my what's the other one? Extraordinary? No, Astonishing. Oh, I'll get rid of
Okay.
that one. You know what I
Yep.
mean? There's a few of them where I'm just like, nah. But my regular Amazing Spider-Man, yeah, I'll hang on to those ones.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's the kind of thing going back to my X-Men books. Like everybody's got a series that's a long running 50, 60-year series that it's like, yeah, that's my books. That's the ones I
Yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah. I do that with a lot of, especially once I start getting attached to a character. Like I did really bad with Conan the Barbarian, for
Oh,
example.
there's so much.
Oh, there are the
Yeah.
Savage Swords of Conan, the
Yep.
magazines. Oh, and all the Red Sonjas. Oh, don't even get me started on her. I get
Yeah.
attached to these characters, and then I'm like, nope. I just have to bid on eBay and just take. I don't know if you guys see behind me. There's a couple cases there. I just, it's bad. It's real bad. Oh, but like I said before, Guardians though, that's my heart.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh, and speaking of heart, I can't believe that they had a tripwire on Rocket the Raccoon's heart. That if it
Yeah.
ever, that is that self destruction, mode. I'm like, what? Seriously? Like
So
that's what you guys are gonna do me here? I thought he was goner. Oh my gosh, when I saw that.
so we talked about you cosplayed Spider-Gwen. Is Hallows Eve one of the characters that you have your eye on for your next cosplay?
Yeah, actually. So I was checking out her outfit. It's kind of cool because it kind of has a hood, it's
Mhm.
orange, but so not quite white like Spider-Gwen's, but kind of similar style as far as that goes. So I might be able to work something out as far as getting creative.
What are some of the characters you have done cosplays for?
Oh, that's a great question. Tank Girl, Dazzler,
Nice.
BB Hood from Marvel versus Capcom.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
oh, Tiny Tina from Borderlands.
Yay!
Yeah, isn't she great? I love her. Like, gosh, she's great. Oh gosh, there's so many. Yeah. Oh, Thor. I did Thor last year, and this
Excellent.
year I'm thinking Sylvie or female Loki.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So
Yeah.
what got you into the cosplay area of nerddom?
Um, I think just going to Comic Cons in general, because I've been going to those pretty much since all of my adult life that I've had a chance, whenever
Sure.
I've had money, that is, because gosh, you go there and it's like you spend $100 in a minute.
Yeah.
It's very easy. Um, Especially with all those dollar bins and everything else going
Hmm.
on. I can't help but go through there and start filling in the gaps in my comics, Uh, but yeah, no, I started going there and seeing everyone else dress up like these characters. Is like, yes, this is where I belong.
See, for me, it was around the time that the Doctor Who was real big, and the name has absolutely escaped me. The 10th Doctor,
David Tennant.
David Tennant. Thank
And
you. I looked at
yeah,
David Tennant and I was like, I could do that. I could do that, and it was neat because it's a what attracted me to it is it's almost an immediate icebreaker. Is you see somebody dressed up as your favorite character, and you immediately have something to talk about, and you know you're going to be friends because we both
yeah,
like this thing.
I did
yeah,
Ramona. I think that was the first one. Or no,
Yeah.
no, I did Umbreon first, didn't I?
Yes.
I made an Umbreon hoodie because he was Spark.
Yeah. The Pokemon Go trainer, the electric trainer,
Yeah, and
because I
yeah.
loved all the memes.
so we were going to the con, and I was like, well, if we're going to the con, I should be a Pokemon, so then I can just follow you around, So I ended up being that, and I know that like before I'd done Harry Potter characters for like Halloween's and stuff like that,
Right.
I did a version of I did like a dark version of Harley Quinn where I did the Joker makeup.
Oh,
So
cool.
I did like the prosthetics across the side and then did the diamond eyes instead of making it kind of muddy. So like those were like more Halloween, but I kind of can translate some of the stuff over, and now I've got a closet full of random cosplays.
Yeah, just random pieces of.
I hear
That's how we
you.
went to Space Dive, is just piecing together random cosplays and being like, "This looks spacey."
I was like, I could take this thing. I use this as like, it was more of like a steampunk jacket. That can be my Kylo Ren jacket. I've got a mask. I'm like,
Yeah.
we're ready and we're equipped in here. There's lots of wigs and things.
Yeah, I
It
hear
is-
you. It's like you Frankenstein together something. It's like I can do anything now.
Right.
Right. I think our claim to fame though is we took Overwatch characters and mashed them with Sailor Scouts.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
nice.
I was Sailor Diva and he was Sailor Soldier 76.
Yes.
And
Oh,
And a
cool.
friend of ours make the sailor outfit, and like the colors were the Soldier 76 colors, and it says 76 on the little flat thing on the back, and it was we went to UMACon with that, didn't we?
yeah, and everybody
Oh,
was like,
Yumacon,
"Oh my god,
sure.
let me take your picture."
Yeah, it was a blast.
Yeah, I think the first time I ever dressed up was like Halloween when I was 13, and I was obsessed with Sailor Moon. So
Hell yeah.
I was the villain Catsy, and my other friend went as Birdie.
That's
And so,
awesome.
yeah, so that was like my first time ever, and I dyed my hair purple with Kool-Aid or something. It was like
Yeah.
I was a kid, you know. But yeah, no, I guess I always just kind of wanted to dress up like shit I thought was cool, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it is
Yeah.
it's kind of empowering too.
Oh,
When you
yeah,
get like
totally.
even my Hawkeye cosplay, which is essentially Matt Fraction Hawkeye, so it's like jeans, the t-shirt,
Oh.
and a lot of
Mhm.
band-aids. It's just like kind of fun. It's kind
Yeah.
of
We have a blast with that. I've always tried to match my hair to it because I change my hair color constantly. So it's always
Yeah.
like, if I'm going to do the cosplay, like the wigs that I say are in the house are not mine.
No,
They're all
that's-
yours.
yeah, and they're all bad wigs.
And they're all bad wigs. But for me, it's like, if I'm gonna do it, the hair has to be the right color. So I'm always like, when I did the Sailor Diva, I dyed my hair blue so it would be kind of like Sailor Mercury, and I had the Sailor Mercury suit
Yep.
that I changed up and put the emblems and stuff on. But it's like, I'm not like a seamstress by any means. So like when
I
we
hear
create
you.
stuff,
Same.
it's just like, okay, I'm just sewing by hand.
Yeah, I no, I did that too, and like that's why a lot of the characters I've tried to portray have been kind of blonde, because it's really hard to dye anything and then try to dye it back to blonde. But I
Right.
suck with wigs, and I don't know if it's just because I have this thick curly hair that does crazy things or what. But yeah, so that's why I kind of stick to a look, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it's what she ended up doing. That's unfortunately now my hair is all gray. So some of those brown haired characters I used to do, I was like, well, I could do the old man version.
Oh, like old man Hawkeye, sure.
Old man Hawkeye, exactly.
Old man
So
Logan.
yeah, so we're talking about cosplay. We're talking about conventions. We've got a convention that's just, I think, when this episode drops is this weekend, which is Motor City Comic Con. Which I'm taking it you're going.
Yeah, it's right in my backyard in Novi, Michigan.
Nice.
So not too far at all. Yeah, and that's the one I'm gonna dress up like female Loki. So I already have the one horn broken off and everything. So
Sweet.
that'll be fun. I'm really excited too because there's two comic guests that I'm really excited to get signatures on some books.
Cool.
One of them being Bob Camp. He used to do the art for Red and Stimpy, you know, the close-up
Yes.
grotesque Bob Camp. He used to do Savage Sword of Conan. So
Yep.
I'm gonna get him to sign some stuff. And an artist at Andy Lanning. And
Yes.
Lanning did the Thanos Imperative, or I'm sorry, Thanos Rising. One of the two. And he also did the Annihilation Conquest, Guardians of the Galaxy, all that
Yep.
stuff. So I'm gonna get some signatures there from them too. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Comic-Con is I tell people that don't go all the time, Comic-Con is a blast. And if you've got people to hang with, like it is a great weekend activity. But even if like you're going by yourself, like going for a few hours, digging through some dollar boxes, seeing people dressed up as your favorite characters and getting a picture of them, like it's worth it. It's so worth it.
Yeah. Also for like people that maybe they don't like so much the comic side of it, there's a lot of celebrity guests that go
Mhm.
every single year too, from all walks of life. I mean, even wrestling people. I think Mick Foley's there this year. Mankind.
Yep.
That's interesting.
He is a wonderful soul.
Yeah.
He is, and he's so gentle and like his characters he portrays. But there's also people from Star Trek that are gonna be there. People
Star Wars
from
people always there.
Star Wars, yeah. And of course Marvel people. Clark Gregg is the one that's from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's gonna be there.
And I think they've got 3 different people from Guardians are going to be there.
Do they?
I think Michael Rooker's returning.
Yes.
Because
Will Poultier, or the one that played Adam Warlock, will be there.
Yep.
And I'm trying to think who else. Kraglin.
Yes, Sean Gunn. We were talking about him in the episode that we did on Amy Sherman Palladino stuff with my best friend Erica, and he is in Gilmore Girls, and he plays this character named Kirk who has like every job in the small town. So every store and everything that you go to, he's in, and he knows nothing about Gilmore Girls. So he was going like, so you're telling me Sean Gunn is the cornerstone of every production he's in? Right. And I'm like, exactly. That's what you need to take from this. But there's actually a couple years ago, Michael Rooker did go to Motor City Comic Con. I have a clip on YouTube where he was talking about the Mary Poppins line and how like it was improvised and everything else, and I was just geeking out the whole time watching him. I'm like, oh my god. And he's such a sweet man too. I wonder, is he doing any panels? Have you seen any of the panel lists yet?
As far as this year, I know he's gonna be there, but I haven't seen any panel lists so far. But I thought it was cool that he was gonna be there. Yeah,
he's awesome.
Yeah, very cool stuff. So how many Motor City Comic Cons have you been to?
All of them since every single one since 2015, except for 2020, because there wasn't one in 2020.
Right, exactly.
2021 was really awkward though, because I had to wear my cosplay with a big mask.
Yep.
Over it, and I think I was Black Cat from Spider-Man that year.
Okay.
Nice.
So it's a little bit awkward wearing like a big blue mask with my black and white outfit, but I made it work.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to know, because you talked about meeting celebrities, getting your comic book signed. Who was your favorite interaction you've had with, and then who was your least favorite?
So as far as like that's a good question.
Because every time you meet one of these people that are tabling at a con, whether it's a comic book person or whether it's a celebrity, like depends on the time of day you hit them, depends on the kind of weekend they're having, something like that. Sometimes it doesn't go so well.
So my favorite interaction was probably Ming-Na Wen, the actress that was
Very cool.
mean, everyone knows her from Mulan, but she was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, she was in Mandalorian. I love her. She did not even have a line. I was so surprised. I was like, "You're Ming-Na Wen." I thought it was she's such a great actress. She does all her own stunts. She's fantastic. And I told her that, and she said she thanked me, and it felt really genuine, like a good interaction. My least favorite, which was actually more sad than anything, was Lori Petty. Lori Petty was the actress that played Tank Girl. She also did some stuff with Pauly Shore lately, like Orange is the New Black kind of thing. But she was really cranky. She came back and she was upset that she said something like, "I just wanted to finish my cigarette," and she wasn't having a good time.
Yeah.
But I still got a picture with her, and she, so she was so it was still okay, I guess, in the long run, but I guess it was more of like a sad, like I could tell she was not having it,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like I said, it can always depend on maybe she was really bummed about not finishing that cigarette. It can always sometimes they're not having a good weekend if they haven't had a line for a day and a half, then it's like, what am I doing here, kind of thing.
I feel like that would stress me out if I was like either an artist or like an actor or something.
Right.
Not having a line would like feel low-key embarrassing to me. Like, not that anybody should be embarrassed, but just it would feel embarrassing to me.
I think it's more likely to happen with like comic book people than it is with celebrities, but like
a lot of the time you've interviewed comic book people because there's not lines.
Yeah.
But
then like with the celebrities, that was when in the like early 2000s and late 90s when you went to con, like the wrestler Virgil was at every Motor City Con and there was never a line. And it became this, like, before memes were a thing, it became this thing of like people taking pictures of Virgil with nobody at the table kind of thing. It's like,
so sad.
oh, that poor dude.
Yeah. I was kind of getting that feeling with have you ever been to Astronomicon before?
I really wanted to go this year because I saw John Lovitz was there.
Yeah.
But I was unsure of the dates because I thought it was going to be one weekend and I found out it was another. And so I saw conflicting advertisements on that.
Yeah, there's going to be a 6.5 because they're bringing Kevin Smith back because what happened last time was that like there was weather delays, and so Kevin Smith and Jason Lee both didn't make it, and they had built so much of the con around the Clerks audience and Mallrats and everything, so people were really bummed about it. But I guess they're bringing them back for a summer one. But at Astronomicon this year, I was like, nobody was talking to Sabu.
Yeah.
From ECW, and I was like, I was too nervous to talk to Sabu because I'm just like, I get nervous, but I was like, man, like, why is nobody talking to Sabu? He's like a legend, dude,
right?
You know, so sometimes it's just the audience too on a specific day or something.
Sure.
Sometimes they'll miss.
Maybe there was a bunch of people feeling exactly like you were, like, I don't want to talk to Sabu, man, he's crazy, he's gonna stab me with a fork, he's gonna hit me with a chair, I don't, like, that guy's nuts.
I just wanted to smoke weed with him. Let's be real here. Right. I'm like, I just wanted to smoke with Sabu really bad.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else really to hit.
Yeah, I think
as far as the thing
covered it.
It has been an absolute delight to talk to you. I would say it is as delightful to meet you over Zoom as it has been to become your Facebook friend over the last couple of months, and I hope I get to see you at Motor City.
Absolutely. I hope to run into you guys too. You know, I hope we get to talk about comics again some more. I always have lots to gab about when it comes to the Marvel universe, especially.
Hell
so yeah, hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, we'll have to touch base with you after the Marvels or something and see what happens.
Oh, hell definitely. Yeah. Oh, definitely. You know I'm gonna have something to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope that everyone out there goes out and they try to support their local comic book shop, you know. And you know, check out
we just had Free Comic Book Day at the beginning of May. But the comic book stores are open 364 other days out of the year. So
That's right. And check them out, you know, support them.
Hell yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, you guys. Rock and roll, and we'll talk real soon.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
All right. See ya.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Really Big Fan Podcast. Thanks again to our guest, Dana. She was a blast, and I'm sure we'll see her out at Motor City Comic Con this weekend, which is happening this weekend at the Suburban Collection Showplace in Novi if you're local to the Michigan area. So it's weird that they do one in the fall now too.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be, because they used to do one in the fall and one, like, when I was growing up.
Yeah.
It was the only Comic Con there was.
So they had two.
And they did one in the fall and one in the spring. Now we have, like, YumaCon, and we've got other con, like the Dawn of Collectors and all these other conventions that happen. And they all stagger throughout the year. And, like, most of them are really good at not stepping on each other's toes.
Yeah.
But then someone will be like, no, fuck you. I'm taking your audience.
Yeah. You know, I feel like, you know, Motor City is the be all end all here. Other than YomaCon, like, those are the two.
Yeah.
Like, anything else beyond that is just like, yeah, it's cool, but it's not Motor City.
And it's like, there's audience crossover, but it's very specific audiences. Like, if you're super into anime and video games, YumaCon is going to be your jam. But if you were super into comic books and, like, meeting celebrities, then Motor City is where you're going to want to be.
Right.
Kind of thing. Well, as we wrap up the show tonight, let's do our serotonin boost. Going into the show today, I didn't know what my serotonin boost would be.
Mm-hmm.
And then during the interview segment, somebody alerted me via Twitter that Nicolas Cage is coming to Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight tweeted out a short video with Nicolas Cage doing like a voiceover, and then they show the character model, and it says "Learn more July 5th." So I can't wait.
Yeah, we were sitting there going, well, I'm like, is he a villain? Is he a survivor?
Right? Is he gonna be one of the killers?
And
like,
we don't know.
No, there's no information. That's the fun part about Nicolas Cage. You can't really pigeonhole him. You never know where he's gonna show up and what his role is gonna be.
I still need to watch that one where he is playing the video games and he barely has any dialogue.
Oh, the Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one's really hysterical.
I would
gotta rewatch that.
I would watch that one again.
Yeah.
Hilarious that you get Nicolas Cage and then you don't give him lines. Like, part of getting Nicolas Cage is to get him to do his freak out and like deliver a monologue in his lines, and they're like, no, we're going in a different direction.
or pretend to be a cat, as Abed showed us.
Sexy cat.
I'm a sexy cat. And he's crawling all over the desk.
So yeah, that's like I said, that happened maybe like 15, 20 minutes ago while the interview was going on, and like I could feel the serotonin just like whoop. Like, oh, I have a thing to be happy about. Nicolas Cage. Sweet. What about you? You got a thing this week?
You know, I thought of one off the top of my head, but I've just been in the zone this week, so there's not been a bunch of things that have happened. But I could do this one. It's not very much in the comics or nerd music vein.
Doesn't
but
have to be.
I had a client that drove over 3 hours to get photographed by me this weekend.
Wow.
This past weekend. Like, that's insane to me that someone likes my work that much that they're willing to drive 3 hours to get photographed by me, but I super hella appreciated it.
You will never believe me because we are married, but you do great work.
Thank you.
But you will never believe me because you think I'm saying it just to be nice.
No, honestly, like, because it's like with you at least, like, I can tell when you don't like something. So
I've got tells.
Yeah, you've got tells for sure when you're not really all that interested in a thing, and sometimes like I can tell you're not interested in a thing, and I just go, okay, I'm gonna go in my other corner.
What are one of my tells? You don't have to tell me all my tells because then I'll change them. But like, tell me one of them.
I mean, definitely, it's like an eye contact thing. Like, you can tell the difference between you when you're actually excited about something and when you're not really all that jazzed about it.
Interesting.
And it tends to be, too, like, and partially I think it's because a lot of the time I'm interrupting you while you're doing something.
Okay.
But, like, I can tell when you're just kind of like, okay, yeah, that's cool. And then you go back to doing what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, bye. And I do the Homer Simpson back into the bushes.
Back into the bushes.
So
I'm sorry that I make you Homer Simpson back into the bushes.
No, it's okay. A lot of people do, but I really appreciated it, and that was I definitely needed that this week. So thank you to Caleb for that.
If people listening want to see your work or possibly drive 3 hours or more to work with you, where can they see it?
I have all of my photography at acronyms.com/photography. So if you have me on social media, you can find my links through there. And I've got like I've sectioned everything to where it's like you can see where the portraits are. You can see the other stuff that I've done. You can see the concert photography portfolio. Like, everything's right there. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And while we're plugging stuff, you can follow us on all the social media at Really Big Fan Pod. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. That's where you can find the videos of these. We drop them on Thursday nights, so you can watch the show. We also stream it on Twitch live on Wednesday mornings at 11:30. That's where you can see us. You can interact with us in the chat and have a good time. And then I usually do a rerun Wednesday night. And then obviously the audio podcast drops on Friday mornings around 3 a.m. because that's when my old podcast used to drop. And I think it's kind of fun to drop a podcast at 3 a.m. so you wake up in the morning like, hey, a new podcast, sweet.
Yeah. A lot of the time I know, like, I'll always know when Tony listens because he'll send me a message and he'll be like, great show as always. And like, or he'll like say something absolutely sarcastic to me about it.
Yeah.
Like, I think he said more than one time he was going to bring his Super Nintendo over and school us.
He did, and I welcome the challenge. I think I'm pretty good when it comes to the classic video game systems.
You hear that, Tony? He's ready to fight.
Just bring it, champ. And you can follow us on Patreon as well if you want to.
Please do
become a patron and help support us and make it so that we can afford to do this and maybe get some better equipment. And I've been spitballing some stuff, some video content maybe we'll put on Patreon coming up that will be exclusive to that. But until then, we will talk to you guys next week. Thanks as always for hanging out with us for the Really Big Fan Podcast.